there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing in this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space, beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all in this utopian dream where love is love and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing in this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space, beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all in this utopian dream where love is love and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing in this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury.
Yo. 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 What up, though? Well, all right. Yeah. Yeah. y'all. Not a whole lot of news to cover. We're going to get into videos pretty quickly. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I only got one thing I want to look at specifically. The new AI explained that we may be able to get to, or we might have to save until Monday, talking about some AI news. And I know that there's, like, Matt Wolf has a big news bit coming. So yeah, let's just look at this, and then we'll get right into video content. Doop 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 doop. Dum 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 dum. All right, and the only reason in particular, I wanted to bring this up is to reinforce how, like, one of the critiques of large language models, such and such, is how it's just predicting the next word, right? Actually, before we do this, if any of you aren't aware, there's some praxis you can do around this, right? There's this app called Libby. You may or may not already be aware of it. The Libby app allows you to borrow books from a public library, audiobooks from a public library without actually, like, going to the public library. So, one, getting a library card is a tangible number that can be used by a library to demonstrate the amount of people who use their service, right? Because that's how everything is dealt with. What service do you provide? So go get your library card. Find out whatever your local library is. Hi, Ferris. Whatever your local library is, find your library, get your library card. It's good praxis. Because the library Gremlin likes to talk about third spaces, right? You can go to the library and just sit there, right? You don't have to buy anything. You don't even have to borrow a book. You can just use a book that's on the shelf and read it while you're in the library and then put it back. You don't even have to put it back. They got people who put the book back. Usually they'll have you just, like, leave it in a particular spot and then somebody takes care of it. It's a whole thing, right? It's everything that's good, right? So get your library card. Then sign up for Libby, right? You enter your credit card information, or not your credit card, your library card information, and then you can borrow books. And the reason I bring that up is because today I got a book that I had on hold, which is 1,000 Brains by Jeff Hawkins. So I started listening to that audiobook. And in that audiobook, your man is talking about, like, the first part is going to be about brain stuff, and the second part is going to be about AI. So I'm listening to him talk about brain stuff and talk about how your brain is a prediction machine, right? Like, I've gone over this before as it goes like horror and comedy. These subvert expectations. That's why they have impact. There is a way that things are supposed to be, that your brain expects things to be, and then the subversion of that expectation is what leads to the impact of comedy or horror, or even like what made Game of Thrones, what it was the fact that that George took the tropes and then subverted the tropes, right? Your expectation of this thing is going to happen, and then different thing happens. That was great. It was a cultural phenomenon, and then the last couple of seasons happened and it disappeared. But that notwithstanding, my point still stands. So this is from almost 2 years ago. The brain is a prediction machine, the key to consciousness. Expectations shape many key features of brain and behavior. Psychology is focused on how the past causes our present behavior, but the future can also cause the present too, via prediction and simulation. The brain constantly makes predictions. Consciousness enhances the brain's ability to form predictive models of the environment and the self. Faulty top-down influence of expectation on perception shapes illusions, weird beliefs, anxiety, depression, psychosomatics, and more. So, yeah, ChatGPT just predicts the next word, but so do you. Yes, Ferris. And of course, that article, if you want to read the article, I'm not going to get into the article. Probably bring this back up on Wednesday. Wednesday, we're going to be having a conversation with Ivan_Neo. You've seen them in the chat. And I've been on their stream, or not been on their stream, but been in their chat when they stream. We are having a conversation on Wednesday, just figuring out the time. And we're going to talk about consciousness. That's all I wanted to cover today, because today we're not talking about consciousness, we're talking about work. But before we do that, there's a new Rational Animations that just came out. And I don't know what's going on, but I can't slide these up and down, so. And I don't know what this one's about because I didn't pre-watch, but it says the hidden complexity of wishes, so I think I know what it's going to be about. So here we go.
Of Wishes by Eliezer Yudkowsky.
One more time from the top.
The Hidden Complexity of Wishes by Eliezer Yudkowsky. There are 3 kinds of genies. Genies to whom you can safely say, I wish for you to do what I should wish for. Genies for which no wish is safe. And genies that aren't very powerful or intelligent. Suppose your aged mother is trapped in a burning building, and it so happens that you're in a wheelchair. You can't rush in yourself. You could cry, "Get my mother out of that building," but there would be no one to hear. Luckily, you have, in your pocket, an outcome pump. This handy device squeezes the flow of time, pouring probability into some outcomes, draining it from others. The outcome pump is not sentient. It contains a tiny time machine, which resets time unless a specified outcome occurs. For example, if you hooked up the outcome pump's sensors to a coin and specified that the time machine should keep resetting until it sees the coin come up heads, and then you actually flip the coin, you would see the coin come up heads. The physicists say that any future in which a reset occurs is inconsistent, and therefore never happens in the first place, so you aren't actually killing any versions of yourself. Whatever proposition you can manage to input into the outcome pump somehow happens, though not in a way that violates the laws of physics. If you try to input a proposition that's too unlikely, the time machine will suffer a spontaneous mechanical failure before that outcome ever occurs. You can also redirect probability flow in more quantitative ways, using the future function to scale the temporal reset probability for different outcomes. If the temporal reset probability is 99% when the coin comes up heads, and 1% when the coin comes up tails, the odds will go from 1-to-1 to 99-to-1 in favor of tails. If you had a mysterious machine that spit out money, and you wanted to maximize the amount of money spit out, you would use reset probabilities that diminished as the amount of money increased. For example, spitting out $10 might have a 99.999999% reset probability, and spitting out $100 might have a 99.99999% reset probability. So $100 is 10 times more likely than $10, and $1,000 would be 10 times more likely than $100, and so on. This way, you can get an outcome that tends to be as high as possible in the future function, even when you don't know the best attainable maximum. So you desperately yank the outcome pump from your pocket. Your mother's still trapped in the burning building, remember? And try to describe your goal. Get your mother out of the building. The user interface doesn't take English inputs, but it does have 3D scanners for the near vicinity and built-in utilities for pattern matching. So you hold up a photo of your mother's head and shoulders, match on the photo, use object contiguity to select your mother's whole body, not just her head and shoulders, and define the future function using your mother's distance from the building's center. The further she gets from the building center, the less the time machine's reset probability. You cry, "Get my mother out of the building," for luck, and press enter. For a moment, it seems like nothing happens. You look around, waiting for the fire truck to pull up and rescuers to arrive, or even just a strong, fast runner to haul your mother out of the building. With a thundering roar, the gas main under the building explodes. As the structure comes apart, in what seems like slow motion, you glimpse your mother's shattered body being hurled high into the air, traveling fast, rapidly increasing its distance from the former center of the building. On the side of the outcome pump is an emergency regret button. All future functions are automatically defined with a huge
I'm down for the emergency regret button.
negative value for the regret button being pressed. A temporal reset probability of nearly 1, so that the outcome pump is extremely unlikely to do anything which upsets the user enough to make them press the regret button. You can't ever remember pressing it, but you've barely started to reach for the regret button, and what good will it do now, when a flaming wooden beam drops out of the sky and smashes you flat? Which wasn't really what you wanted, but scores very high in the defined future function. The outcome pump is a genie of the second class. No wish is safe. If someone asked you to get their poor aged mother out of a burning building, you might help, or you might pretend not to hear, but it wouldn't even occur to you to explode the building. Get my mother out of the building sounds like a much safer wish than it really is, because you don't even consider the plans that you assign extreme negative values. Suppose you try to patch the future function by specifying that the outcome pump should not explode the building. Outcomes in which the building materials are distributed over too much volume will have approximately 1 temporal reset probabilities. So your mother falls out of a second-story window and breaks her neck. The outcome pump took a different path through time that still ended up with your mother outside the building, and it still wasn't what you wanted, and it still wasn't a solution that would occur to a human rescuer. What would a safe wish look like? Well, let's try once again. I wish to move my mother, defined as the woman who shares half my genes and gave birth to me, to outside the boundaries of the building currently closest to me, which is on fire, but not by exploding the building, nor by causing the walls to crumble so that the building no longer has boundaries, nor by waiting until after the building finishes burning down for a rescue worker to take out the body, and so on. Adding all these special cases, the seemingly unlimited number of required patches, isn't a good way to go. It would be like programming a calculator by explicitly adding ever more assertions like 15 plus 15 equals 30, but 15 plus 16 equals 31 instead. What you really need is an algorithm that produces true answers to additions by capturing the actual process of adding up two numbers, not a giant lookup table with additions. How do you, in your head, exclude the outcome where the building explodes and flings your mother into the sky? You look ahead and you foresee that your mother would end up dead, and you don't want that consequence, so you try to forbid the event leading up to it. Your brain isn't hardwired with a specific, pre-recorded statement that blowing up a burning building containing my mother is a bad idea. And yet, you're trying to pre-record that exact specific statement in the outcome pump's future function. So the wish is exploding, turning into a giant lookup table that records your judgment of every possible path through time. You failed to ask for what you really wanted. You wanted your mother to go on living, but you wished for her to become more distant from the center of the building. Except that's not all you wanted. If your mother was rescued from the building but was horribly burned, that outcome would rank lower in your preference ordering than an outcome where she was rescued safe and sound. So you not only value your mother's life, but also her health. And you value not just her bodily health, but her state of mind. Being rescued in a fashion that traumatizes her, for example, a giant purple monster roaring up out of nowhere and seizing her, is inferior to a firefighter showing up and escorting her out through a non-burning route. Yes, we're supposed to stick with physics, but maybe a powerful enough outcome pump has aliens coincidentally showing up in the neighborhood at exactly that moment. You would certainly prefer her being rescued by the monster to her being roasted alive, however. How about a wormhole spontaneously opening and swallowing her to a desert island? Better than being dead, but worse than her being alive, well, healthy, untraumatized, and in continual contact with you and the other members of her social network. Would it be okay to save your mother's life at the cost of the family dog's life if it ran to alert a firefighter but then got run over by a car? Clearly yes, but it would be better, ceteris paribus, to avoid killing the dog. You wouldn't want to swap a human life for hers, but what about the life of a convicted murderer? Does it matter if the murderer dies trying to save her from the goodness of his heart? How about two murderers? If the cost of your mother's life was the destruction of every extant copy, including the memories, of Bach's Little Fugue in G minor, would that be worth it? How about if she had a terminal illness and would die anyway in 18 months? If your mother's foot is crushed by a burning beam, is it worthwhile to extract the rest of her? What if her head is crushed, leaving her body? What if her body is crushed, leaving only her head? What if there's a cryonics team waiting outside ready to suspend the head? Is a frozen head a person? Is Terry Schiavo a person? How much is a chimpanzee worth? Your brain is not infinitely complicated. There is only a finite message length which suffices to describe all the judgments you would make. But just because this complexity is finite does not make it small. We value many things. And no, they are not reducible to valuing happiness or valuing reproductive fitness. There is no safe wish smaller than an entire human morality. There are too many possible paths through time. You can't visualize all the roads that lead to the destination you give the genie. Maximizing the distance between your mother and the center of the building can be done even more effectively by detonating a nuclear weapon, or at higher levels of genie power, flinging her body out of the solar system, or at higher levels of genie intelligence, doing something that neither you nor I would think of, just like a chimpanzee wouldn't think of detonating a nuclear weapon. You can't visualize all the paths through time any more than you can program a chess-playing machine by hard-coding a move for every possible board position. And real life is far more complicated than chess. You cannot predict in advance which of your values will be needed to judge the path through time that the genie takes, especially if you wish for something longer term or wider range than rescuing your mother from a burning building. The only safe genie is a genie that shares all your judgment criteria, and at that point you can just say, I wish for you to do what I should wish for, which simply runs the genie's should function. Indeed, it shouldn't be necessary to say anything. To be a safe fulfiller of a wish, a genie must share the same values that led you to make the wish. Otherwise, the genie may not choose a path through time which leads to the destination you had in mind, or it may fail to exclude horrible side effects that would lead you to not even consider a plan in the first place. Wishes are leaky generalizations, derived from the huge but finite structure that is your entire morality. Only by including this entire structure can you plug all the leaks. With a safe genie, wishing is superfluous. Just run the genie.
So yeah, Eliezer Yudkowsky is like adamantly like anti AGI, right? Like until it's proven that it can't go off the rails, right? He's basically like, I don't know if they have a leader, but de facto, that dude is it. And sometimes he makes good points. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like that was a more convoluted genie story than I would lay down, but there was nothing really in it that I would point to and say, well, that's just wrong, because it wasn't. That was pretty legit. So, yeah. All right. So the first thing is, we're gonna take a look at this video.
But
we're gonna take a look actually at a portion of this video, right? Because I watched this section, and if you want, as always, it'll be in the Discord, so on and so forth. But this is on Wednesday when we were talking with Paradigm. I said that I would respond to somebody named Cagnadian, right? Cagnadian is a permanent feature of Paradigm's chat. And generally, like, we're on the same page. We just differ in our belief in AI as a problem solver, right? He doesn't think so, and I do. It's way oversimplification, but that's the thing. And I have copies of his, I should say there. I don't actually know. Their comments that I'm gonna talk about in a second, but they also gave me this video to look at, and I think that this is the section that is particularly relevant, and so we'll just go from there. And this section is the problem with post-work socialism.
Sure. Yeah, if it did, then we wouldn't have to worry about the fact that some labor has to be done, right?
Right.
And that'd be good news, because really the problem.
Sorry, let me back that up a little.
Yeah, if it did.
Well, that's where it begins.
Again, this is to say, why does technology and automation not cover all of the questions of necessary labor?
Sure. Yeah, if it did, then we wouldn't have to worry about the fact that some labor has to be done, right?
Right.
And that'd be good news, because really the problem for the post-work socialist view isn't just that it presupposes the necessary labor, that it has to be done, and implies that it's kind of not a political problem that we have to solve. Like, how are we going to determine what counts as the needs? And then who's going to do the necessary labor,
Right.
and on what terms, and how's that going to be distributed, or really what's going to count as necessary. But then we also have reason to worry that in the post-work social society, uniquely, nobody would do it, because not only are people being given this UBI, but also they've attacked the work ethic, which would be the other source of motivation to work, right? So they've successfully destroyed.
Previously in the video, like by work ethic, he's talking about the Protestant work ethic that underpins, workers' position in capitalism in the United States. You know what that is all about.
Destroyed any of the ways in which you might have a general supply of labor to do it. And they've just avoided. And I should just parenthetically, because at this point people might think that I'm just some kind of capitalist, I've written this in order to defend a different view, which I call shared labor socialism.
We'll get to that.
Where we share. Yeah, good. I just want to make sure at this stage someone doesn't press,
Right.
Jacobin invited a crazy capitalist. So it's worse, right? They presuppose necessary labor without acknowledging it and give us reason to believe it wouldn't be done, in which case the UBI would be useless and you'd fall back into some other labor system. But then what about automation? And I think the problem with automation is this. I think automation is a partial solution to the problem, but it's a partial and subordinate one. It's not the answer. And the reason is there are many jobs that you could automate, many forms of necessary labor that probably would get automated if there were if we already lived in a democratic and socialist society in which we were able to collectively control and decide what's going to be automated and what isn't, rather.
And viewers, longtime viewers of this channel, know that my presuppositions regarding labor being automated don't require what they're talking about, right? The function of automation is dealt with within the capitalist frame. It is in the interest to lower labor costs as a function of capitalism. And automation lowers those labor costs down, trending towards zero, right? Just your costs become maintenance, and as you eliminate labor costs from your production costs, then that also reduces the cost of what you produce, and so on and so forth, and so it trends towards zero. I'm not requiring anyone to act any way but in which the fashion that they already do. There's an important aspect of it. Now, he's particularly responding to a segment of leftists who are like post-work and like that. And I am not defending their position. I'm just critiquing what he is saying from my position. I don't require us to get to democratic socialism. I or any kind of democratic distribution of labor prior to the event happening. My presupposition is always the leverage point is that automation will increase the number of people who are out of work to the point where there is a tipping point and calculus has to be made either by the power structure in order to supply people with their material needs, or that the people who are not being supplied with their material needs will then take matters into their own hands. There's historical precedent going all the way back to whenever you could think of, right? You cannot have certain, like the entire reason that the New Deal got pushed through was due to 25% unemployment. And I'm talking 82, 99, 100. There's some more commentary that he's going to make, and then I'll respond to it at that time. But like, I am talking about full unemployment under the capitalist system, leveraging the change in the system. That's how this is going to work. I'm not saying that you can't organize enough labor in order to make changes to the system, but one, I don't know that we have that kind of time because we definitely, like, no one is moving fast enough. No labor organizers are moving fast enough. The power structure doesn't care enough about all the different things. It's lost control of its systems of support, right? Like Capitol and the police are like directly a threat to the power structure as it currently exists. This is, I've started to wonder how much the power structure, right? Democrats, Republicans, all the elected officials actually fear the police, right? Like it's the idea of you caught the tiger by the tail and now what do you do with it, right? Because the police act to support capital, property rights, all that crap. The police unions, their power level is the power level that anyone who looks for worker power in a union would like to have. You would like the WGA to have the same power level as the police union. You would like the UAW to have that kind of power level, right? But because the people with guns, like that scene from Fight Club, you know, we guard you while you sleep. Like this is that. I'm starting. I don't know. I'm comfortable with the idea that is how the power structure now views the police, and it's yeah. Anyway, back to it.
And then leading up to what is profitable to automate. But it's only a partial subordinate one.
Yeah, everything is profitable to automate.
Because there are some forms of labor that are intrinsically not automatable.
And this is a point of disagreement because it's a point of aesthetic. Right? What he is about to say, I disagree with because it's a point of aesthetic. It's not intrinsic.
So that's one thing, right? There are many forms of carrying labor that are just intrinsically not automatable. Teaching
is absolutely automatable, right? And again, I don't know what his particular framework is and his understanding of where AI is now, where AI is trending, and where AI will be in the future. But teaching is absolutely automatable. You might not want it. You might want a human touch, but you could automate it. And this is the point.
Caring
also, right? Like, if you are comfortable with shipping your Nana to an old age home and never going to see her, you are also comfortable with a robot handling her daily maintenance, let's call it. You might aesthetically not do that, in which case you would probably like to move Nana in with you if you can handle that kind of additional responsibility. Right? The idea of extended homes beyond the nuclear family has much more historical precedent than the nuclear family. And I also believe that in the future, given my vision of the future with the idea of post-work and surplus and things like that, that we'll be able to accommodate that kind of thing much better than we can currently under this capitalist hellscape.
All kinds of medical provision.
There's nothing medical that cannot be automated. We go over it, and I'm not even talking about like, we go over the stuff that is currently being automated, right? David Shapiro's
Like any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror. and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
It's going to go off like 20 times.
Yes, like any other shiny new toy, AI is
It is last day of September,
and
but
it will
like,
reflect back exactly who we are.
you're out of pocket, my dude.
Thing is, like any other shiny new toy, AI is
I don't know how to stop it.
and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
How do I?
Yes, like any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
Oh, I think if I hit this,
Thing is, like any other shiny new toy,
I could do that. Okay. Like, thank you. Thank you, my guy. Can I turn it back
like
on?
any
No.
new toy is ultimately
Nope. Oh, I don't know how to make it stop. But yo, Old Lobster, absolutely the realest of the real, 100% out of pocket. Like, y'all don't even know. I'm not going to tell you, but y'all don't even know. Yeah. No, and a lot of good people got those. A lot of good people got those. Very cool. Very cool, my dude. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. I don't even know what I was saying. Oh yeah. Automation. No, you do. In every possible way that a streamer, a person who's trying to facilitate community, anything I can think of, you are there, and I'm very glad to have you. Yeah, aesthetics, yada yada. Back to the video.
And there's quite a bit of that labor, especially in a society and in a kind of an advanced industrial society.
And beyond that, a lot of this was also covered in Dave Shapiro or David Shapiro's post-work videos, where he talks about how people will have more opportunity for community. So things like teaching, which could be a job, right, are not a job. The teachers teach. No one has to teach. Right? Medical care done by automation. That is not a problem. Elder care, any of that, child care, you will have natural developments of increased community. Right? There are human behaviors that will cause that to follow.
Where there's a lot more of that work to do. Right? So that's one thing. I think there's intrinsically not automatable.
Nothing is intrinsically not automatable. If you can do it with these two monkey paws, you can automate it. If you can do it with this monkey brain, you can automate it. That's it. And then your decisions become aesthetic. There are people like myself who like the weird AI art. And there are people who are never going to like the AI art. And our collective decisions around the AI art and the art should be ones of aesthetic. Do I like this thing? If I do, then I would like to possess it and put it in my house or whatever you might want to do with it. Wear it on a shirt. It should be that simple. It is that simple. It's just complicated by
work. There's other kinds of work where you can probably automate like 90% of it, but people still need to do some of it. And in the long term, in any sort of future I can kind of imagine, that's work that some people will have to do. There's also the work of maintaining the machines, right?
The machines can be maintained by the machines, right? Like, I had some Fourier, I believe is the name of the company. I'll have to look again, but they are running out the first mass-produced humanoid robot. I don't know how good it's going to be. It could be crap. We're still early in that stage, but you know, you look at the difference between where Boston Dynamics is with the robot now and Boston Dynamics was with their robots many moons ago. That is the kind of evolution of quality that you are going to see as the timeline progresses. Right? There is nothing that you as a human being physically interacting with the world that cannot be simulated and replicated, because this is how other people learn from you. Right? I learned to be an electrician. I then taught electrician skills to other people. And most skills that we teach to other people are the repetition of tasks. Physical repetition. You take these two wires, you hold them in this position, you grip them with the pliers, and you twist them, and then you put the little wire nut on it, and then you shove it in the back of the box. Absolutely could be done by a robot. We have seen a robot put up drywall. Very slowly, but if it can be done, it can be done faster. And the robot has way better endurance than any person that you can think of. So the robot will be able to, I mean, has this dude never seen WALL-E? Right? Remember that scene in WALL-E where WALL-E goes and he finds the tread for his broken ass tread and he takes it off and he gets the new tread. Yes, it was a cartoon, it was a story, I understand. The point is, what up, Vinfox? The point is that, like, if it can be imagined in the story, it can be done by the robot. It can. Unless you can show me it can't, I'm going to go with it can. So, the robots will be maintained by the robots. Next.
Right, there's all kinds of work. I mean, automation gets rid of some labor and creates new labor.
This is the fallacy that the automation has always produced new different jobs. And I keep telling you that this industrial revolution is different because it is actually removing the work. Previous industrial revolutions have made one person be able to do their work that much more efficiently or bigly and do the work of multiple people. This industrial revolution is going to remove the work because the work, top to bottom, will be done by the automation.
And it does that continuously. Like we see that with machines, right? That's that you can kind of eliminate 10 jobs, but you create 1 or 2 new ones.
And if that is the case, then follow your own progression. But again, no.
That human beings have to do, right? And then there is just sort of labor of superintendents. I mean, there's people.
You don't need to supervise the robots because the supervision of the robots will be done by the AI. This is Again, I don't know what to tell you. You are limiting the scope of the capabilities of the automation at this point, right? Why you're doing that, I do not know. You're either unaware or unwilling. I'm being as charitable as I can be at this point.
People who still have to be there managing and watching machines, so it might not be particularly effortful, but it still requires human beings. So that's one class of reasons why I think that automation's a partial one. So I do think that it's true in a democratic socialist society. In one sense, necessary labor, you could automate away a lot of labor. You wouldn't just get rid of the bullshit jobs, right? You could automate a lot of labor and reduce the necessary labor people have to do to a relatively small share of the work week. So I'm not rejecting that. But the one other thing I wanted to say is that the two other reasons I think automation isn't as strong an answer as post-work socialists have made it out to be, and I have to say I used to think that too. So I this is sort of self-criticism as well, is first, you can't automate automation. So you first have to have a political process of determining what's going to count as a need. You have to have some political determination of needs or some social choice about needs to know then what's the kind of labor we're going to call necessary and therefore want to automate away first, right? Or reduce through automation.
And like, again, I want to be as charitable as possible. One, because this person is not here to respond directly to any of my commentary. And two, I don't believe they're like, they're not a bad person, right? Like they're not, they have good thoughts, right? Like, but they limit themselves in their imagination or vision, depending on how you want to look at it. Right? Because the presupposition is that it requires this, a more democratic society. And don't get me wrong, that will be ideal. If we can get to a better society prior to the tipping point, we'll have a much smoother transition, right? But that tipping point is going to come regardless of whether or not we deal with the issues of policy beforehand, right? It's going to occur. There is nothing. So, like, if you have a goal, I think I said this on Wednesday, but if I didn't, I'm going to repeat it. Either way, I'm going to repeat it. If you have a goal, then your desires and your actions need to be in alignment in order to achieve that goal. We currently have a political structure that gives at least a lot of air and lip service to doing something about regulating AI. They have also abdicated responsibility. I think the way that they're going about their current process is questionable to begin with. But more importantly, they did just go home and I don't know if the government it's so infuriating I can't even begin to deal with it. But we either are shut down or the shutdown is looming, and we have people like Feinstein and McConnell, most of them are not there to do what we would consider the work, right? Whatever your political allegiance might be, because I know I get people of varying political stripes in here, you can say that even your favorite representative or senator or whatever is not doing the work, right? And There might be reasons why it's not getting done, because the process is convoluted and you have to do a lot of extraneous crap in order to get the thing that's important to you. Doesn't matter, right? Like, the government as it currently exists is failing the people bigly. At best, nothing happens. At worst, something negative happens. Very, very seldom does something violate that particular calculus. So, the actions and the desires, or at least the stated desires, of our government representatives are not in alignment. Ergo, they will not accomplish their goals. Stated goals. Whether you believe them or not is not relevant. It's a stated goal, right? If they have other goals and they're not stated, then it's almost impossible to know what those goals are, yada, yada, yada. Capitalists are easier to extrapolate off of because they generally have a similar goal: to maximize profits for their particular patch of capitalism. So they tend to have their goals and desires in alignment, at least more so. Now, their goals and desires and alignment might differ from your own. They differ from mine, but it at least makes sense if you stand in their shoes. Either way, those capitalists are going to continue as they have and push forward with their next iteration of the thing. If someone builds a robot and someone mass produces a robot to do stuff, someone else will make another robot, and it will try to cut out a particular market share. Right? The humanoid robot idea has limited functionality, so you will see robots, especially in the industry and service industry. Those are going to be less humanoid because humanoid is not necessary. And you're going to continue to move away from humanoid as someone like redevelops the factory floor to work with robots as opposed to with humans. You got the majority of our factories and whatnot are set up for humans to work in them, not robots. As we move forward, they will be redesigned in a back and forth kind of process. I think it's important to remember the core idea of a corporation is to be the only one offering its wares. The issue with that is it forces a situation where you're actively trying to destroy your competition in whatever way maximizes your profit. Absolutely. Right? The inevitable outcome of this type of behavior is going to be full automation. Right? The side effect of things like the UAW strike is that somewhere in these companies are groups of people directed to automate this as quickly as possible. Because robots don't get sick, robots don't have kids, they got to go to their ball game, robots don't strike. Robots show up every day and work as long as they need to before they got to go down for maintenance and like that. From my point of view, do I like that? No, because I'm generally pro-human. But I put myself in the shoes of the people to think, what would they do and how will they do it? And that's automation. The reason we haven't had as many robots, and we have robots building cars now. There are just some portions that we still have humans doing for some reason. And I'm not going to claim to be an expert on building cars, so there might be some aspects of humans building cars that requires this, right? Rather than the really impressive robots that I've seen. But as soon as a robot can do whatever I can do physically, I don't need whatever mental process goes into building a car. The robot doesn't need that. The robot just needs to repeat the same actions multiple times forever. AI will replace the crash test dummies with humans for better hopefully not, right? Like, you know, the UN's Charter on Human Rights and all that is supposed to be baked in and like that, but I mean, maybe the dead ones. So, anyway.
And automation isn't self-automating, right? People sometimes
you got to define your terms, bro. Like,
just think it's just assumed we can just automate any task can be automated and we do it. But there's an infinite number of needs that can be satisfied, and machines can't tell us where we should direct our efforts. At any given moment in time, we can't automate everything. Right. So that's a political problem. That's part of the political problem of necessary labor, is deciding.
This is a statement. We can't automate everything. But why can't we automate everything? You know, the idea that there's an infinite number of needs is okay, maybe, right? But there's, for instance, a hierarchy of needs. So food, clothing, shelter, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, maybe, but that's the stuff, again, that if the power structure is not supplying those basic needs to their constituents, people with too much time on their hands and hungry children are going to make decisions, and that always has worked out badly for the power structure. In whatever format, wherever you look, going back all the way to the beginning. You got to keep people busy, or you have to keep them satisfied. And if you can't keep them busy, you're going to keep them satisfied. The reason we haven't had any kind of weird uprising in this country is because enough material needs have been met. Right? You got to hit a critical mass before you get an uprising. And we haven't done that.
Deciding what's going to count. The second is that there's a way in which necessary labor, all things being equal, will increase in a future emancipated society because human needs will expand. Mm-hmm. And I think post-work socialists are really kind of much more vague about this than they are clear. Sometimes they talk about needs as just what we need to survive. That's the UBI thing, right? Oh, well, so long as we have our basic needs met, then there are no other needs, right? There's nothing else that must be produced. Right. Everything else is just free time. But as a kind of Marxist, and I think it's a pretty standard thought in a lot of Marxism.
Always remember that Marxism was a critique of capital. Always remember that. Like, what up, Igloo? Elder Gang. Like, Marx talked about how capitalism had to build the thing build the machines, build the factories, build all the stuff that socialism was going to use. And this is why they're, countries like the USSR and China have had some challenges going from an agrarian to a modern industrial structure. That's what socialism is, when the workers own the means of production. So, and also, welcome, Fat City. Is it 209? We're going to see if we can handle you in one ear and Hildy in the other so I don't miss anything. Oh, I got you. Yeah, area codes. Good luck, Igloo. Yeah, I believe in you. I believe in you. So yeah, I'm gonna let him continue because pre-watch Andy.
In socialism, part of the point of emancipated society is that our needs expand. It's capitalism that reduces people's needs to what it takes to show up to work the next day, right? The basic needs thing. But a future society is one in which we have a need for the development and realization of our talents. But that actually requires an immense amount of resources. If you want to be a scientist, or you want to be an urban planner, or you want to be involved in urban planning, right? If you want to, kind of stage massive music concerts, you can just think of a million tasks, right? That require resources. You need access to some share of the means of production, not just the means of subsistence.
Right.
If what you want is to realize and, develop and realize that aspect of you and contribute it to society. But that takes resources. So all that stuff has to be produced, and we have to think of those goods as necessary. So there's going to be an increase in necessary labor, which means there's more tasks that would have to be automated, or at least an expansion of necessary labor from that perspective.
Right.
But again, he presupposes that humans will have to do that labor, right? Even if a bunch of it is automated, that humans will have to do that labor. And that's patently not the case, right? We got tractors that will laser shoot the weeds in the field. They're developing where the robot hand is able to pull the raspberry off the raspberry plant without crushing the raspberry. There is nothing humans can do that cannot be automated. Nothing. Zero. Is there anything else?
So I think on that note, let's maybe then turn to your vision of a kind of different post.
And no, we're gonna move. So AI can't think like us. I'll give you a partial yes on that. At the same time, we're heading down timelines. If you don't think AI can ever think like us, I'm sorry, that's mistaken. Create like us, AI is already capable of acts of creation. We watch video, and like that. And that second statement, I completely disagree. There's nothing special about people. The only thing that's special about people is in relative to, the rest of animal life on the planet. Right? I don't believe in a soul. I don't believe in magic human theory. Any of that kind of stuff. More or less, there is this idea of consciousness. And if you want to come in on Wednesday of next week, we'll be talking about consciousness with somebody who talks about consciousness, which I'm looking forward to. But today we're just talking about work and like that. I do recommend listening to this because, Oh no, absolutely. I appreciate you. Welcome in. Thanks for coming. And let me see if I turn on my alerts. It's fine. You know. Okay. Alerts box is back on, and no. Speaking of automation, I don't need you. Yeah. Again, like you need to intake various types of thought in order to have a good holistic view of the world as it exists. We do ourselves a disservice as leftists to not listen to what they are saying. You don't have to believe it, right? But you should understand why liberals, capitalists, why any of those folks think the way that they do. Because otherwise you're just angry at them and you accomplish nothing. All right, so in specificity, I'm going to take a look at Cagnadian's comments from the other day. So this is a problem. I have it on my phone. I didn't upload it to the computer, so you can't look. So, grant me the good faith that I am quoting them directly. This is the problem with trying to present something like AI or any other tool in general as a solution to problems. It keeps ignoring everything else in the world, both historically and currently, like people aren't out here doing like watchdogs type of shit. I assume they were referring to the video game. But I disagree. Now, there is 106 episodes to see the entirety of like the process, but every foundation block for what I talk about is a little. That's a little better. Little shiny paradigm would be mad at me. Every foundation block in this scaffolding that I build up is presented with evidence, like verifiable in existence evidence, and you just extrapolate out from there for stuff that is currently not available, right? The underpinning of my cyber socialism is the Cybersyn project in Chile, 1973, Algocracy. It already exists. By extension, the way that Amazon and what I'll read. I'll read your wall of text in a second. The way that Amazon and Walmart run their business with algorithms in order to distribute resources. These things exist. It's just like the bottleneck is capitalism. The bottleneck is profit taking. That's it. Like, if we remove that bottleneck, then we can keep the structures that are already proven to work. Because you can get something from Amazon in a day. And there's very little that you actually need that you can't wait a day for. True. Unfortunately, sometimes that willingness to understand the philosophical underpinnings of literal and conservative belief systems gets wrongly construed for debate broism from fellow leftists. Yes. There is a big difference between understanding philosophies and merely engaging in excessive debate simply to win. Online debate broism is a bastardization of traditional formal academic debate, and it's entirely different from proper philosophical analysis. Absolutely. And like the debate bro ism, whatever purpose it served at one point in time, whatever value you want to apply to how much it served anything, like, it was spectacle, it was reality he's always annoyingly correct. Reality TV, junk food, that kind of stuff. Like, we have gone beyond the need for it, and it failed to evolve into something else, right? And if it fails to evolve, then it kind of naturally follows that it devolves, and debate broism, like, the last time I watched someone in a debate was like a 6-person panel. It was Paradigm, not Eli Monty, and someone, and I'm doing them a disservice. And then like right wing and centrist people who, I don't need to name because I've clocked what they're about. And it's not even that. It is formulaic. What up, man, Captain? It's formulaic because you can. Oh, they're doing a straw man, and then once you respond to them with calling them out for the straw man, they're going to do one of these moves, and now this one, and then this one's going to yell as soon as you try to respond to the original point, and then they're going to gish gallop away. Like, it's like, when those really smart people do chess and they start telling you how the game is going to be over in like 7 moves, it's that kind of thing. It's boring. So anyways, I'll give again, I'm quoting Cagnadian, I'll give the easy answer. Automation essentially kicks the can down the road of where the labor output will be. I wouldn't use the term kick the can. It has the automation doing the labor. And if you answer everything can be automated, which I always do, then the robots will essentially have human consciousness by then, and then they would obviously be deserving of rights. Now, the second part follows the consciousness part, absolutely. If they have a subjective experience, they should have rights, 100%. However, there is nothing in the labor that is done that requires consciousness. It just isn't. And I point you back to the previous part of the stream leading up to this point. Most of the work you do, if not all of it, involves the repeating of learned tasks just over and over and over again. There's no consciousness required for that. You know what I mean? Indeed, there's so many barriers to productive discussion due to the format, and you can pretty much predict the tactics, which makes it unbearable. Yeah, like, I will, in a 6-person panel debate, it's like, come on, dude. This is just for people yelling at each other. ChatGPT knows about Ferris. What? Well, okay, no, it has access to the internet, and on my page it says Ferris. You almost had me. ChatGPT knows about Ferris. It's notable for discussing AI, robotics, and future tech while also featuring a cat named Ferris. Not wrong, but I know where I got it from, and that's like right there. I'm just happy that I'm finally known by the AI, because the previous iteration of ChatGPT did not know me. What else? What else we got? And once again, ignores the amount of extraction required and ecological destruction required to automate everything. This is a valid concern, valid criticism, which is why I am huge into the idea of like asteroid exploitation, because nobody lives there and it doesn't matter, right? The issue on Earth is you're either fucking with people or you're fucking with. Yeah, no, I mean that's accurate. Like, it's objective reality. I'm not upset that fucking ChatGPT is quoting objective reality of me. Like, there's the problem with resource extraction on Earth is that people live there or the environment is affected, right? Like, one of those two things is the problem. And extracting that from not the Earth is the way that we can get the resources to expand into that. NASA has come back. Japan also extracted test resources from an asteroid. This technology will continue to progress, and eventually that's what we'll do. Like, I have an expectation that you will see they will go find the asteroid, strap some thrusters on it, bring it to the moon, put it in orbit around the moon, and the thrusters will be able to readjust the orbit so that it doesn't fall into the Earth and kill us all. Like, these are solvable problems. These are engineering issues. Then they will extract the resources that they need, and if it's a solid enough object, then they can actually turn it into like an orbital colony, right? And then you do the next one, then you do the next one, and then theoretically you could strap them together and turn them into like a mini Dyson ring, but around the moon. The goal to automate everything is silly and pointless. It may as well be turned into the Wall-E future. I beg to disagree. The pinnacle of human existence will be. It is not. Sorry, you weren't here. I have it on my phone. I did screen caps on my phone, and I didn't transfer them because I'm a terrible streamer. Yeah, I feel that the fact that Wall-E made everybody get fat rather than like not that. The Wall-E is mired in its own capitalist framework, right? Because the entire idea is that if we automate everything, then people will get fat and lazy and won't do anything. And I mean, I'm sorry, that's capitalist propaganda, right? That is right-wing conservative capitalist propaganda. You consume the crap food because you have a limited amount of time over the course of the day in order to insert calories into your body so that you may continue to labor. Right? The half-hour lunch break. You have enough time to go to Burger King, get your meal, eat it on the ride back to the job site, and then go back to work. All the food in that coasting around on carts was all intended to keep them pacified by giving them commercials and, red and crap like that. That portion of the movie, that aspect of it is mired in capitalist propaganda. That's my argument too. The issue here is that we have to deal with capitalism before trying to present automation as a solution. I disagree. I think I've already laid that out. Oop, going the wrong way. Like, before all companies can automate, supply chains are going to be shut down from climate disasters. I disagree with that, and my my counter is the ingenuity of humanity, right? Like, we've had climate disasters before of different types. Like, various cradles of civilization had to be completely evacuated. Was it Mohenjo-Daro? I'm probably saying that wrong. But like, that had a bunch of people in it, and then all the people were gone. And that had to do with climate change, right? Vesuvius blew up, killed a whole bunch of people, but like, we were still there doing work. Ice ages have happened before. And I don't mean that to downplay climate change. I mean that to like really point out how ingenious humans are at adapting to situations over time. Like, we will figure out how to keep the supply chains going. And look at the ozone layer. Like, that one though is, no, yeah, sure. But that like had a good outcome. I'm talking about living during the, yes. Your boy saw a video. What up, the Potter Monkey? Your boy saw a video where I think the methane in the sewer caught fire. So fire was coming up out of the manhole at the same time, like they were blasting it with water. It's like it was both. Everything is both on fire and flooding at the same time. It's absolutely insane. No disasters with the global economy we have now. We have devolved to hunt and farm. I don't know that that's devolution. Like, the idea is the distribution of labor, right? You don't farm all day. What up, Magic? There are a variety of things you have to do in a subsistence type situation, even a subsistence type situation with with extra, you still, if the stores go empty, millions die. You're not wrong. You're like, if there's a breakdown, which is my counter to anyone who's like an accelerationist for the rising up and having a revolution. One, the leftists will lose because we haven't been putting in the organization and training. And two, a lot of people would die because if you disrupt the ability to move resources under that type of scenario, then every person that you care about who isn't like in a particular physical fitness bracket is done. If you rely on medication, they're done. If they're old, they're done. If they're children, maybe they could be good, right? But who here has seen The Road and got trauma? I don't want to hunt, farm, and open plain in Africa half naked. I mean, not every day. Like, that does sound interesting. I mean, I know how to. I have a variety of skills. There's many of them that I don't want to do anymore. Yeah, like without penicillin, right? How many of you know how to create your own penicillin? How many of you know how to distill alcohol? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that requires supply chains, even internal supply chains. If you like people, if you are empathetic to people, you are in favor of the ingenuity of humans, and, you know, you hope that there's not a violent revolution. Also, Elon Musk killed several test monkeys for the brain chip recently, and he's already trying to start human trials. It's not wrong. Not wrong. It's a weird, the response to that from Elon was that they were like already going to die. Don't get me started on it wearing the hat backwards. Saw a great meme from the Surfs about my wife left me and my hat's on backwards. It's perfect. Done. It was peak. Done. Moving on. Elon is a, terrible human being. That he tested it on monkeys that were already going to die, and it's like, that's better, like, if you are going to do something, but, like, again, there are subjects that we don't cover on this channel because of, like, how you have to talk about them, and that, that's one of them. Like, neural interfaces already have produced a lot of great outcomes, right? Like, there is the woman, she got the thing, and then she can now, talk to people using large language models and a neural interface. Right. At issue there is that Elon is Elon and just needs to not be Elon anymore. Because my worry is people misplacing their hope when they can have a real one. And again, like this is why I'm responding to direct quotes and I'm not talking shit. I like Cagnadian, we just have a disagreement. That's it. There's nothing, like, I'm not gonna talk shit about their parentage and get weird and curse and yell and slurs. None of that shit. Hey! Speaking of, welcome. Chat, this is Cagnadian. Cagnadian, this is chat. Violent physical conflict is going to happen as inevitable as things are going down. The difference will be what shape it will take and who will win, and that all depends on what we do now. That is a point of view. I don't agree. It is avoidable. It's absolutely avoidable. And I hope that we can avoid it. I don't know how long you've been here. I hope you were here long enough to hear my responses both to that video and, directly to your quotes.
Like any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
You just get gift subs wherever you go. I hope that you feel that I was fair, like that I didn't take you out of context, that I wasn't like in any way like that I treated you with the respect that you would expect. Because again, like we just disagree on certain subjects. Generally speaking, we're heading in the same direction. So Cool. All right. You want to do some more video content? This one is from Old Lobster. Put it in the Discord. What time we got? 6:30. So got about an hour and a half, and then it's movie night. We're gonna be watching Her in the Discord. So if you haven't seen Her, or if you want to see it, make sure you're in the Discord. Probably we've been doing well with getting started right around 8:15, so there's actually a movie night thing where I'll send out the thing just describing it like Paradigm says. I'm thinking 10 steps ahead, but the main thing is just a disagreement of perspective, and time will tell. Exactly, homie, exactly. I'm glad you feel the same way. All right. So, is it safe for a 14-year-old to watch, or should I just watch it by myself and if he was chilling? I think it's good. It's just about work. It's Historia Civilis. I don't think Old Lobster would hit me off something I couldn't really like, Crazy has a fantastic series of Roman season, engaging and interesting. It's history lessons. Yeah, we should be good. What did I do?
We work too much. This is a pretty recent phenomenon, and so this fact makes us unusual historically. It puts us out of step with our ancestors. It puts us out of step with nature. For reasons that will become obvious, anthropologists in the 20th century became very interested in the evolution of work, and so to answer some of their questions, they looked back to Stone Age societies. What they discovered surprised them. They found that while there were unique cultural variations all over the world, virtually all Stone Age people liked to work an average of 4 to 6 hours per day. They also found that most Stone Age people liked to work in bursts, with one fast day followed by one slow day, usually.
I think having context of our history with work is important when talking about what it might look like in the near future regarding reducing work and how it's associated with pay. Yeah, but again, the reason I believe the things that I do in the context in which I present these things is that I am steeped in history. Like, I can go grab the books that I've read, some of the books that I've read, and put them in front of you. So, like, and from like a variety of different views, like not just like the standard capitalist Western idea of history, whatever history I could lay my hands on, because I find the different, like, the story of Rome according to Rome, the story of Rome according to Western Europeans in like the Renaissance and so on and so forth, the story of Rome told by the Persians, right? Like, because if you get the different contexts, then you can kind of put them all together and kind of see, like, the Dawn of Everything. Everyone should read The Dawn of Everything. You won't, but you should. Also, we recommend Day After Tomorrow. PBS, Terror of Climate Change, Public Broadcasting Channel, and YouTube mentioned something on it coming true. Yeah, to extent. There's an issue with the giant polar vortex thing, like that kind of thing. every human being is complex and flawed and a product of their time and material conditions. Magic. That's what I could say about any human being.
Something like 8 hours of work, then 2 hours of work. 8, then 2. Fast, slow. Fast, slow. These anthropologists found another thing. Pre-capitalist and pre-industrial societies all had their own ways of measuring chunks of time. Some would measure by how long it took to accomplish a specific task, or cook a specific meal, or walk a specific distance. But the odd thing is that when you compare all of these little markers that were used by different cultures, they were all somewhere in the ballpark of 30 minutes. It seems that in a world without clocks, or phones, or sundials, measuring the day in 30-minute chunks just feels good and natural to humans. Very few societies ever felt the need to break the day into smaller chunks than that. It's hard to go much deeper than that from archaeological evidence alone. But there are other pre-capitalist and pre-industrial societies that we can look back to help us. There are excellent surviving records from medieval Europe that delve into this issue, so let's start there.
And within the context of history, I feel that because of the push that has happened like relatively recently, within the past couple of decades, for more diverse sources, more direct sources, all that kind of stuff has put people in closer connection with these ideas, so it's lessened the effect of like the he who wins writes the history books, because people are like suspect of that, and there is a market, for lack of a better word, for people to tell the stories directly from indigenous cultures all over the world to give a better framework, and people are interested, people are involved, regardless of your own cultural background. You are interested in these things, these stories, these pieces of evidence, and like that. And like the oral tradition has, a tendency towards mythology, but at the same time, there's a reason why the Bible says don't eat the shellfish. It's very difficult to tell when the shellfish is bad. So if you just don't eat it, then you won't get sick and die. So when you boil away a lot of mythology, you can get to the practical reasons why such things occur.
For virtually all of human history, most work has been agricultural work. This was also true of medieval Europe. So when thinking about medieval workers, we shouldn't be thinking about cities. We should be thinking about workers in fields. For the first hour or so of the medieval workday, people would just trickle in at their own pace. The employer was usually expected to provide some food to the workers. So for this time, people usually had a chat and a bite to eat, but otherwise did nothing. As you can imagine, convincing people to get up and start their work for the day was often quite difficult. Employers complained about it all the time. After a couple of hours in the field, there would usually be a mid-morning break that could range from 30 to 60 minutes, where workers would have another bite to eat. When the sun was high in the sky and the day was starting to get hot, work would stop again for an extended period of time, something like 2, maybe even 3 hours, depending on how hot it was that day. This period would begin with a larger midday meal that would be recognizable to us as lunch, and was followed up by, this is not a joke, nap time.
And so, like, looking at this, right, like redefining how we work, or redefining it from the way that we work today. I want to take this back to connect to the video we watched earlier, where, and to be fair, I did not give him a chance to express, the shared work economy and things like that. But by extension of that idea of shared work, right? Like the aesthetic choices of jobs that we might want people to do are going to be like part of our behavior. You're going to have teaching, right? Let's take the job of teaching, right? We're going to take that and put it in the context of you're going to have adults with kids. You're going to have people who like to hang out with kids. You're going to have people who have skills to teach the kids and the other adults and teenagers and whatnot, right? And it'll be a more fluid kind of thing. You follow me? And look at it within this context of like, at noon, we're all going to go and we're going to head over to the shady spot and, we'll tell stories, or we'll watch the guy who does the whatever, the wood turning or wood carving or painting or any of that stuff. We're going to do some painting today, right? Like, it's not going to be art class of 45 minutes with 3 minutes in between classes that you have to run down the hall to get to. It's going to be a natural evolution. It's just going to be what you learn about. And if they're good, as people who want to teach often can be, they will find a way to tie disparate activities together in an overall narrative because of the way our associative memory works, because of the way we like to behave, because we like things a certain way as human beings. We're going to trend towards that type of behavior. We're not going to do the job of teaching. We are going to teach and learn and share.
In medieval Europe, siestas weren't just a Spanish thing, they were an everywhere thing. After returning to work, refreshed and rejuvenated, workers would intensify the pace of their work in an effort to finish everything up for the day. If they were done by the mid-afternoon, they could go home. If they weren't, they would break for another 30 to 60 minutes, with more food provided, before going back in for one last sprint. Most of the time, workers didn't have to stay much later than this, but if it was harvest season and people were working late, there would often be a larger break in the evening with a larger meal provided by the employer, but this was rare. Workers might be in the field for like 8 hours a day, but when you account for all of the breaks, they would only be working for 4 to 6 of those hours. During the busiest times of year, they might be in the fields for like 12 hours a day, but with the breaks, they would only be working for 7 to 9 of those hours. Notice the numbers we're playing with here. Stone Age peoples all...
And also, remember the difference between this type of work and the type of work that you do now, right? When you go to your job and you are laboring alongside other people, it's a forced association. They are other folks, right? Like and you're just all happen to be doing the same job, and you may or may not like those people. Wherein this type of scenario, you're all from the same community. And yeah, you might still not like those people, but generally speaking, it's the difference. Like, if you were if come here, I'm going to pay you to move these rocks, versus you and some people that you know, maybe cousins, maybe friends, whatever, gonna move some rocks. you're going to chat, you're going to tell stories, you're going to have a good time, you're going to sing songs, whatever it is that gets you through the day. It's a different kind of format. Speaking from a sports perspective, in terms of skill development, that's the optimal time, 4 to 6 hours. Exactly. People will still be doing things, just like people wouldn't be fully passive, like in WALL-E. Exactly. It's just that people still doing things is what I refer to as still labor. So labor has been eliminated and done collectively, pretty much like what I tried to convey in the video I like towards the end. And this is like, when I say all work can be automated and all work will be automated, all labor will be automated, what I mean is, and maybe this will clarify, is that, okay, so we take all work and then it's all automated. And then the choice to do stuff becomes optional, right? It becomes either an aesthetic choice. I don't like AI art. I like handcrafted shit. So I'm going to go see Magic and have them craft me some whatever, right? Like, that's what I like. Or I like AI art, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to, bang it out with Midjourney, and now I got this AI art, and I'm happy, and the guy who likes the human AI stuff, or the human art stuff, is happy, and everyone's happy. It's an aesthetic choice. What we will do will be the stuff that we want to do, not the stuff that we have to do in order to keep the whole machine running. I think that it's a distinction without a difference, right? But again, like, I don't think it's something we have to hang on. I feel I'm being accurate in what I'm saying, and you would like me to say something different, but from your point of view, same thing.
All over the world, and agricultural workers in medieval Europe both liked to work 4 to 6 hours a day, even though each group had no knowledge or memory of each other. It seems that this is just a natural pattern that humans like. Medieval workers would work longer during the harvest or during a crisis, but they didn't like to, and that's the point. Also notice the length of these breaks. Medieval workers measured the days in 30-minute chunks, just like their Stone Age ancestors. What else sticks out in the medieval workday? Notice how the workers were constantly eating. This was one of the perks of being a day laborer. Food was a worker's biggest expense, and so part of their compensation was that their employer would take care of the food for that day. It would be like if part of your compensation was that your boss paid your rent. It relieved a massive financial burden.
Or your boss bought you food.
One other thing to note was that work was generally understood to be a thing that happened during the day, and although there wasn't an exact science to this, a workday was broadly understood to be half of daylight hours. If there was an urgent need for people to literally work from sunrise to sunset, there was kind of a gentleman's agreement that this would count as 2 days of labor. What can we take away from all this? Work used to be a lot more informal and a lot more casual. Labor and leisure used to be intermingled. One was expected to relax and even nap on the job. Work was a part of a worker's life. Kicking back and passing the time wasn't just something workers did at home, it was equally something they did at work. Unless there was some sort of unusual crisis, workers were not expected to experience great stress while working. The week always began at a leisurely pace. Monday and Tuesday are described as days with a holiday spirit. Employers write of their difficulty in getting people to even show up. Thursday and Friday are described as fast days. Mondays and Tuesdays were slow, Thursdays and Fridays were fast. an echo of the Stone Age pattern of working. Fast, slow, fast, slow. Saturday was payday, and so it functioned as a hurry up and finish everything so that we can get the hell out of here day. It seems that under normal circumstances, Saturday was kind of a half day, although during busy seasons it could easily turn into another fast day, like Thursday and Friday. After the week's work was done and everybody got paid, workers got a full day off on Sunday. But by the 16th and 17th centuries, a new custom invented by workers disrupted this pattern. They called it Saint Monday. Saint Monday was kind of an unofficial holiday, where absenteeism was permitted and even expected on the first day of the work week. People were still flush with cash from last Saturday, and Monday was a slow day anyways, so it just organically became a thing that workers just didn't show up. Employers...
And when you're flush with cash, then you, yeah, I can get it to you. So when you're flush with cash, you go out, you have a couple with the boys, you know, you see the seamstresses is one way, you know, that kind of stuff and like that. And then, you know, maybe you show up about halfway through Monday or, you know, on Tuesday because it's just super casual.
Learned to tolerate it, and workers gleefully looked forward to it. Countless labor actions in early modern Europe can be traced back to some dumbass boss with something to prove, trying to crack down on their beloved Saint Monday. This was the real origin of the two-day weekend. It didn't come from government. It came from workers. They just did it themselves, and it came centuries before any legislature got around to making it official. But leaving aside Saint Monday, it's striking how different the mentality of medieval workers was from the mentality of workers today. Or let's flip that around. It's striking how different our mentality is today from that of our ancestors, going back hundreds, even thousands of years. Here's one specific example of that difference. Whenever medieval workers could afford to stop working, they did. Medieval Europe was not a culture in which people saved a lot of money. This isn't because they were primitive or selfish or anything like that. There just wasn't that much for poor people to spend their money on. Food, housing, clothing, that was pretty much it. If a worker was all set in those three categories, there honestly wasn't that much else available to them. This led to a phenomenon in medieval Europe where, after all of a worker's basic needs were met, the more they earned, the less they worked. To put it another way, medieval workers liked to spend most of their discretionary income on leisure. This isn't such a strange phenomenon. If you survey people today and offer them a choice between more money and more time off, most people would take more time off. It's just that under our system, people are never offered that choice. Or when they try to exercise that choice for themselves, they are either professionally punished or fired. In medieval Europe, people could make that choice for themselves. And whenever possible, workers worked less. A lot less. There were three major holiday periods where workers routinely took a big chunk of time off: Easter, Midsummer, and Christmas, or for the uninitiated, March or April, late June, and late December. I would note that of the three, only the December holiday period made it into the modern era intact. Things really slowed down in the winter. Days were short, and the work was short. Because of this, a tradition evolved called winter wages, where workers were paid half a day's wage for half a day's work. We're talking about a 4-hour workday at the very most. If you add in all the breaks, this would be maybe 2 to 3 hours of actual work. Winter wages were usually done for the months of December and January, and during this time, people took as much time off as they could afford. Workers spent their extra time on indoor labor that might not generate a profit. Home repairs, building new furniture, patching up or making new clothing, these were jobs best saved for the slow winter months. When you total up the estimated number of days worked by
There's also like a physical aspect to that. The more you work, the more energy, the more calories you need to burn. So not in the wintertime, there's less food generally available. You're working on whatever you harvested and preserved for those winter months. So you would want to, generally speaking, burn fewer calories so that you could eat less food so that your food would last you throughout the winter. Yeah, so, like, there's always, like, a physical reason why we do a lot of the things that we do. And 100% Old Lobster, I like the process that this person's going through. I like seeing good citations. I like it all.
Medieval farm laborers, things become quite stark. Researchers have found that Spanish farm laborers did not work for 42% of days in a year. In France, the number was more like 49%. The English usually worked more, but this wasn't because they were naturally more industrious. It's because they were historically more exploited by their aristocracy. When there was a labor shortage in the 14th century, English laborers immediately used their clout to create more time off for themselves. For a time, English workers enjoyed 51% of days free from work. The funny thing about these numbers, 42%, 49%, 51%, is that once again, they echo how people worked in Stone Age societies. Almost every other day off. Fast, slow, fast, slow. Labor historian E.P. Thompson describes this work pattern as a natural human rhythm and a common preference in people across different regions, different cultures, and different times. For a point of comparison, consider a modern worker working 5 days a week. In a calendar year, that worker has 28% of days off. Add in the 10 or so public holidays that most countries have, and that worker now has 31% of days off. Add in 2 weeks of vacation, and that worker now has 34% of days off. Assume instead that they get 6 weeks of vacation, and that worker has 39% of days off. In order for a modern worker to even begin to rival the amount of time off enjoyed by a medieval French farm laborer, that modern worker would need to be provided with 3.5 months of vacation per year, plus weekends, plus public holidays. Medieval workers were operating on a level so far beyond us that it's difficult to even dream that big. Up until the modern era, workers were paid by the day. The length of the workday could fluctuate throughout the year, but even during the busiest periods, workers might be in the fields for 12 hours at most. But as I've said, if you take into account all of the breaks and meal times and nap times, that might translate into 8 hours of actual work. And that was on the busy end of the spectrum. At other times, a shortened workday would often lead to less than 4 hours of actual work. That all began to change with the proliferation of mechanical clocks. Cities and towns began building clock towers in their town squares in the late 14th and early 15th centuries. And before too long, churches, and yes, even some private businesses, were inspired to have mechanical clocks of their own. Arguably, the most important clock ever built was installed at the Amsterdam Stock Exchange in 1611. The Netherlands were at the epicenter of this new capitalism fad that was sweeping Europe, and their shiny new stock exchange reflected that. Local Dutch governments tried to curb the capitalist fervor taking over their country by restricting stock trading to certain times of day, 2 hours in the summer and 30 minutes in the winter. Wait a second, see that? Even as late as 1611, Dutch stock traders had their own version of winter wages. It didn't even necessarily make sense for their job. It was just in the culture that that's what people did in the winter. Anyways, the Dutch wanted to issue hefty fines to any traders who violated these restrictions, so the stock exchange commissioned a giant state-of-the-art clock. This idea quickly proliferated to every stock exchange in Europe, and with this, the clock escaped the public realm of town squares and entered the private realm of business. All of a sudden, capitalists wanted to prove how much of a capitalist they were by having their place of business install a mechanical clock, just like their local stock exchange. Clock mania had begun. Textile mills were the first businesses utterly transformed by the clock. Some brain genius had the idea to connect the mechanical clock to a bell, which would signal the beginning and the end of the workday. This was a profound cultural shift, and workers really struggled to make sense of it. Understandably. Under the old system, and by the old system I mean the way that people had been working for all of human history, workers were hired by the day and measured the day in 30-minute chunks. They began and ended their workday accordingly, within a broad 30-minute window. Now, workers were hired by the hour and measured the day in 60-second chunks. This was new, and it was confusing. Many workers responded to the workday bell by doing the most logical thing under the circumstances. They just ignored it. It had never mattered before at precisely what minute one began or ended their work, so why should it matter now? But the capitalists cared. In fact, they would develop an unhealthy obsession with the clock. Before too long, the capitalists were able to convince city governments to get involved, who began issuing fines to workers who were late for the workday bell. Let me say this again. If a worker who worked for a private business was 1 minute late for work, the local government would fine them as much as an entire day's pay. This kind of thing had never been done before. It had never been part of the unwritten contract between bosses and workers. The capitalists just invented this new rule out of whole cloth, and they did it by joining hands with local governments across Europe. Industrial capitalism and the heavy hand of government, friends since the very beginning. The owners of the text.
That right there, like, the idea that some people have that government was separate from business, there's no basis for that, right? Like, who owns the land on which the business does its business? It's always the government. If you buy a house, if you buy some land to build a factory, who owns that land? Don't pay your property taxes, and you will find out who actually owns that land. But the government wants you to come in with your business and create jobs, because then more people will live in that space doing those jobs and paying those taxes so that the government can do their stuff. all government, going all the way back, like the idea of the big man, the idea of, even going back to the earlier part of that, there is this video. There is going to be an association between whatever government structure existed at that point in time and the person who's doing the farming, right? Like the boss. Because that government needs that food to feed the people. So it needs those people who are going to direct that kind of labor and take on the risk and all that other kind of stuff, so that there will be food, resources for the people in that area. And again, going back to like these fertile valleys where we used to live, and then people like just left them. Once the food was no longer available, people would just leave. It is now harder to do that. We're not going to just pack up and head a caravan from like Miami up to Atlanta or whatever, But that functional tie between those who theoretically own the production and the authority, they've always been connected. At one point in time, they were the same people.
Textile mills wanted to change the culture of work, and they did. But they did it by basically beating their workers into submission. As capitalism and later industrialization swept across Europe, it brought with it an oppressive, even authoritarian relationship between workers and owners. Shortly after the introduction of the clock, the capitalist class killed the customary afternoon nap that had been part of the workday for as long as people could remember. Absolutely tragic. They also stopped providing food to the workers, which dumped an extra financial burden onto the working class. Mealtimes, which up until now had been long and informal and subsidized by the employer, were shortened and regulated down to the minute. The entire workday was just squeezed and squeezed until all of the air and all of the culture and all of the joy was taken out of it. But soon, even having a maximally productive workday wasn't enough. Workers quickly figured out that they could not trust the company clock. Many bosses liked to fiddle with the time so that the workday started a little bit too early and ended a little bit too late. One trick that bosses liked to pull with early company clocks was to rig them to the production line so that if there was any sort of technological problem, as there often was, then the clock would stop. Later generations of company clocks had mechanisms built into them that caused them to periodically pause during the workday, accumulating minutes, only to suddenly jump forward to the real time during breaks. It's funny, because
I don't know how many of you had the clocks in school that you would swear that this was happening. Yeah, no, I vibe with it. Like, it's clear who is who. But, like, you would watch that clock and you would swear that sometimes took longer than others, and then, like, sometimes it would jump forward or actually go back a minute, and it was... So, yeah, I totally buy this.
Capitalists were the ones that invented this idea that the clock must reign supreme. They were the ones who had the government fine people if they were 1 minute late for work. They were the ones who unilaterally imposed this new social contract on workers, and then they were the ones to immediately break this new social contract. Why? No reason, really, just for a few extra bucks. Like I said, workers caught on pretty quickly, but when workers talked with other workers about how the company clock was inaccurate, it became standard practice within the textile industry to fire them on the spot. Fast forward 200 years. When pocket watches became common, workers did the sensible thing and brought them to work. Why wouldn't they? The capitalists had established long ago that being even 1 minute late for work was a mortal sin. Surely pocket watches would enable workers to be supernaturally punctual. This was exactly what the bosses wanted, right? But that's not how it went. For the first time ever, workers with pocket watches had physical proof that their bosses were tampering with the clocks. This practice was so egregious and so morally wrong that it became a political scandal, particularly in Britain, with genuine calls for regulation and reform. The capitalists responded to this scandal by, well, what do you think they did? Imagine, you own a factory, you find out your middle managers are messing with the company clock. Word gets out, there are angry newspaper columns, there are debates in parliament, there's the threat of legislation coming down on your head, there is a full-blown political scandal. What do? If you said, ban pocket watches from factories, search workers before they enter the building, and fire anybody who complains about it, then congratulations, you're a fascist. And yeah, that's exactly what the capitalists did. By now, it should be clear that the mechanical clock was a tool used by the industrialists to subjugate and exploit their workers. It was never about productivity or efficiency, because they proved over hundreds of years that they would rather fire a productive worker than run an accurate company clock. That was where their priorities were. It was never really about profits, was it? It was about power. 20th century Canadian socialist George Woodcock, who wrote at length about what he called the tyranny of the clock, wrote the following. And because without some means of exact time...
He's got them Brezhnev eyebrows. Like, those are some big, bushy, wild eyebrows. Holy cats. Real socialists have big eyebrows. That's all I'm saying.
Timekeeping, industrial capitalism could never have developed and could not continue to exploit their workers. The clock represents an element of mechanical tyranny in the lives of modern men, more potent than any other exploiter or any other machine. All of the trends that began with the mechanical clock kicked into overdrive with the widespread adoption of artificial lighting. This is what finally killed winter wages. Now, there was no need to take it easy when the days were short. With artificial lighting, capitalists started treating every season like it was harvest season. That's how factory workers got stuck working 12, 14, 16-hour shifts, not just during the busy season, but all year long. That familiar feeling where you leave work in the winter and it's already dark out? That wasn't a thing until like 1802. That was a thing that was invented by industrial capitalists in order to maximize productivity. The industrial capitalists did not stop with the tyranny of the mechanical clock, and they did not stop with the 12, 14, or even 16-hour workday. In time, they expanded their reign of terror to target public holidays.
If you want a surreal experience in life, I was a security guard, right? Where I had to exist within the space because a warehouse was like closing down. So they needed someone. They weren't even really concerned about the products that were in the house. It was the equipment and the shelving and stuff like that. They didn't want any of that damaged. So I just had to be around. But it was 16 on, 16 off. That will mess up your entire, like, your circadian rhythms and everything else. Working 16 hours straight is bad. But, like, the times that you worked and then the times that you slept were constantly, like, shifting over the course of the days by 8 hours. Like, holy cats. I would never do that again.
In a matter of decades, public holidays that had existed for hundreds of years were systematically suppressed in favor of more work. We talked earlier about the late medieval period, when workers were able to live lives where they had 42%, 49%, 51% of days off. Only 200 or 300 years later, workers had to learn to survive with only 15% of days off. The industrial capitalists would have taken more if they could, but the church mounted a defense of Sunday as a day off, mostly. At the end of it all, the lives of workers had been completely transformed. English workers in the 19th century were working 80% more than English workers in the 17th century. The country had never been richer, but you would never know it by looking at the workers. Over the century leading up to this, the British GDP had grown by 50%, but over the same period, worker pay was not just stagnant, but in decline. They were doing almost double the work for less pay.
Does any of this sound familiar?
And the transformation wasn't just in the number of hours worked. Owners and bosses used their leverage to force their workers to live in a tiny authoritarian world run by capitalists. This shift in the culture of work has always been fascinating to me, and so I tried to look back to where it first began. When and why did we shift from the more casual and laid-back work culture that came out of medieval Europe to the more totalizing and authoritarian and inhuman work culture that came out of the Industrial Revolution? I think I've figured out where things started to shift, and I think I've got it pinned down to the exact year.
Nice.
1664. In 1664, some absolutely psychotic capitalist named Richard Palmer, cursed be his name, paid the church in the town of Wokingham, England, to ring their bell at precisely 4 o'clock every morning and at precisely 8 o'clock every evening. He did this because he was still seeing the cultural evidence of winter wages, where workers woke up later during the slow winter months and worked half as hard as they normally did. As a capitalist, this drove Palmer crazy. He felt that it was deeply important for workers to be up 4 hours before sunrise every day, even if they didn't really have any work to do. If they didn't want to wake up on their own, he would do it for them. So he had the church bell ring at 4 o'clock every morning, 4 hours before sunrise. He also felt that it was his job to tell people when to go to bed, so he had the church bell ring at 8 o'clock every evening. Also, shout out to this church for straight up abandoning their religious mission and surrendering to this capitalist weirdo. Way to go, guys. I hope the money was worth it. According to Richard Palmer and this new breed of 17th century capitalist coming up with him, private time was an outdated concept. This new generation of capitalists wanted a say in how workers were spending their hours at home. They even wanted a say in what time they went to bed. They had a totalitarian worldview. As far as they were concerned, all time was company time. Inspired by the work of Richard Palmer, this particular form of abuse became a fashionable trend in England. Psychopaths all across the country started co-opting churches and victimizing towns, all in the name of productivity. 20th century Canadian socialist George Woodcock writes of this new breed of capitalist. The new capitalists, in particular, became rabidly time conscious. Time, here symbolizing the labor of workers, was regarded by them almost as if it were the chief raw material of industry. But this newfound obsession with time and productivity didn't stop there. When this new generation of capitalists left their places of business, they would see their workers getting off work for the day. And what did they see them doing? Standing around in groups, chatting, relaxing on public benches, walking into public houses to grab a meal, or God help us, a drink. All of this public recreation bothered Palmer and his friends immensely. Palmer's obsession with the clock coincided almost exactly with the rise of English newspapers. And what did this first generation of newspapers like to discuss? They liked to discuss the problem of the poor, and specifically the problem of the leisure activities of the poor. The capitalists were very open about this. They said that the only legitimate leisure activities for the poor were mental cultivation or religious study. Basically, studying Latin or studying the Bible. That's what poor people should be allowed to do for fun.
Like, I've said it before in a variety of different contexts. The conservative arguments never change. There is no reason to debate these ideas. They are the same ideas that they have had for almost 400 years now. Like, what new... We think of new and interesting ways to do stuff. The conservatives never do. Nobody wants to work anymore, and the poor should not be enjoying life at all. And where did you get that iPhone?
Anything other than that, they argued, was corrosive to the culture. For those keeping track at home, bribing the church and turning it into a private tool for the capitalist class, not corrosive to the culture. Relaxing on a public bench after work, corrosive to the culture. These people were demons. That's what the capitalists wanted. No life outside of work. No hobbies. No idleness. No relaxation. No days off.
I'm 100% certain that like most streamers would not run something like this. Like, it is, it's half an hour first off, and then there's like, it's half hour of dude talking. But like, I think it's important to understand that like capitalism didn't just show up one day, right? Like, came down from on high and or revealed itself as the natural state of being. It's nice to see the building blocks that were placed to get us where we are, so that they can be seen of these are the things that either need to be dismantled or referred to other people. You know who loves exactitude and scheduling and things like that? Automation. Exactly. Our natural state of being is before capitalism. There is nothing natural about it. I'm sorry to any of the people who might be hanging out, but like, there is nothing about capitalism that like, and for whatever purposes it had at some point in time, if you want to make the argument that it is better at assigning resources than central planning, again, the idea of algocracy, the idea of algorithm-driven resource management, the idea of cybersyn, all of these have now functionally put the lie to that, because now central planning run via algorithm can react faster than capitalism, because they'll do the same thing at the same time, but capitalism needs to get paid. That bottleneck is going to make it less efficient, my guy.
Nothing to look forward to. No life. Just work and someone else's profit. Twentieth century Canadian socialist George Woodcock concedes.
I love how he does it. This is 3 times he's introduced him, right? And each time it's 20th century Canadian socialist George Woodcock, not just George Woodcock or anything else. Like it's no, you got to say the whole thing. A pimp named Slickback, right? It's my whole name is 20th century Canadian socialist George Woodcock.
That mechanical time is valuable as a means of coordination of activities in a highly developed society, just as the machine is valuable as a means of reducing unnecessary labor. But, he argued, the modern use of the mechanical clock did not reduce unnecessary labor. It did the opposite. Hurried meals, the regular morning and evening scramble for trains or buses, the strain of having to work to time schedules, all contribute to digestive and nervous disorders, to ruin health and shorten life. What to make of all this? We are richer as a society than ever before, but somehow we are less free. Workers have lost so much. Not just our afternoon naps and our holidays, but our autonomy, our dignity. In short, we work too much. But it doesn't have to be this way. Medieval French peasants took as much time off as they could afford, which for them was 49% of the year. It's time for us to start moving back in that direction. We already know how to do this. We have the money. We have the policies. We have the administrative capacity. We have everything we need to work less. The only thing we lack is the ambition.
Yeah, definitely a great video. My only critique, like for me, it's great. For y'all, it's great. There's a lot of utility in this. My only critique would be that if he phrased certain things differently and referred to like George Woodcock as opposed to 20th century Canadian socialist George Woodcock, like if you if you adjusted the overtly leftist socialist kind of things, this would be an amazing piece of propaganda, just the history of capitalism or something like that. Like presenting it in that way, I think you could like slide this into somebody's DMs. You know what I mean? Like, it's so close to a great piece of propaganda, but that doesn't detract anything that, you know, I'm just, my brain always thinks like that. It's like, how can I use this to convert somebody who disagrees with me? You know, that kind of thing. And, but like, other than that, I enjoyed the video. I think it had good pacing. I liked it. 100%. All right. Meow. Okay. I think I'm gonna wrap for today because I don't have anything short. Everything runs in the 20 minutes to half an hour. Even the AI explained is like 15 minutes, which in streamer time is like a half an hour. and then we're up against 8 o'clock, and then I got to set up the movie night in Discord. Movie night in Discord. Make sure you're in the Discord if you want to watch the movie. We'll be starting at right around 8:15. So you think you can tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain. They are kind of looking for what I like to do. I'm going to give you guys something new, something you probably, or someone that you probably have never seen before. And it's kind of science. Let's see if they're open for raids. They are. This is cooking without looking. Cooking without looking. There's someone who, it's cooking, but cooking is science, right? And art, and both. And they're blind. And I think that this is an amazing experience. Found them via Moo Hoodles, space science streamer. Always a good time. I will be there Monday. We're gonna do a bunch of video. We got a whole bunch of video to get to. So if you enjoyed the experience, I hope to see you again. And like that. So I appreciate you all. For those of you who are coming to movie night, I'll see you in about 45 minutes. And for those of you who are just here for stream, I will see you on Monday. And again, Wednesday, we'll be talking with Ivan Neo about consciousness. So it should be a fun one next week. Oh, also, Monday's my birthday, yo. How can you not show up to my birthday? Drink your water. Eat some food. Take your meds if you forgot. Shoggy loves you. So do I. Be good.